Okay. I'm like, how's she leaving? She on the bus.
My family started running me. They started making me pass out sandwiches and stuff. They like, oh, you got a break? All right.
Okay, so coming back after break, part three, diving more into our interview process, formulating our interview questions. So looking at this page, I feel like you guys have it now. You got it. We got four categories. We have four major tasks, right? So identify all features, tasks, steps. We got four steps. What are the four steps? Go. Tell me the four steps that we're asking the end user to complete. So step
Address
one,
information,
yeah,
shipment details, payment, and confirmation.
yes. So we want them to complete their address information. We want them to complete their shipment details. We want them to enter all their payment information, and we want them to finally receive a confirmation, right? So that we've done this over here. So we've identified that. Now the next phase of the framework is to ask questions to expose possible pain points and or room for improvement. So in this view specifically, when we're on step two, what are we asking them to do? What is the task on this view? We're just talking about step two. What's the task?
Select your rate.
Yes. So we're asking them to select their rate options. So if we're trying to identify whether or not there's possible pain points, what's the question? It's very simple. What's the question? What are we asking them? We want to know if we always want to know, were you able to do it and was it pleasant? Were you able to do it and was it pleasant? That's all, that's
Okay.
it. Right? So
Right.
the were you able to do it question, how are we going to form that?
Issues.
So first, were you
Did you
able to
experience any issues?
wait, so we're always going to ask the questions like, were you
Were
able
you
to?
able to select your rate options?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I thought we did that already. I thought we were past.
Were you able to select your ship what was it, ship rate options, right? And then what's the follow-up question? Because we're trying to identify pain points. So what's the follow-up question?
On a
Did you
scale of 1 to 10,
experience
how
any
was your
issues?
experience?
No, so were you able to do it?
How was your experience? Or
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Were you able to do
How
it?
easy? How easy was it?
No, you guys are right. You guys, what she said was right. It's just I want you to
Oh,
do one thing before we get to that. It's a step in between there.
okay.
Were you able to do it? Dig into the pain point, if there was one, and then you rate. Were you able to do it?
yes or
Dig
no?
in. Right. Were you able to do it? So the were you able to do it question is, were you able to select your shipping rate? The second thing we do is we dig into the possible pain point. So how do we dig into the possible pain point?
If
The
no,
possible pain point, if they said, right, if no,
explain your experience.
no, what do we want to know specifically?
Did you experience any issues or difficulties?
Right. We already asked them that, but so they're saying yes, they weren't able to do it. So if no,
If
what did
no,
you?
explain, right?
So if no, what issue did you face? Right. The reason that we won't say like explain your issue or whatever, because that's kind of open-ended where the customer may be like, were you able to select your ship rate options, right? And then they may say no. And then if we say, if no, explain, they may give us an answer like, well, I'm 65 years old and I haven't been on the internet in a long time. And Spectrum was supposed to come out to do my, no, we don't want it. If no, what issue did you face? You know what I mean? If no, what issue did you face within the form, to be very specific?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because we don't want to know that Spectrum wasn't there and your internet was down. We don't want to know that. We don't know. If no, what issue did you face with the form? And then, so were you able to If no, pull out the possible pain point. And then what's the third thing we do? We rate.
Explain. Oh, rate. Okay.
Rate your experience and selecting the ship rate option from 1 to 10. 10, 1 being the worst experience, 10 being the best experience. You see what I'm saying? So let's follow that same thing. So let's go ahead. Let's just select, okay, what are we asking them to do? What are we asking them to do?
Are we still on the rates, or are we in the second select package?
We're on this. We selected this. So what? So now that we selected this, what are we asking them to do?
Oh, select package type.
So what's the question?
So were you able to select your package type?
Yes, yes, we are rolling. We are rolling now. Were you able to select your package type? What's the next thing we do? Identify possible pain points. So the follow-up question is,
If no, what issue did you face?
thank you. Did you face what?
While selecting the package type.
Yes. And then the final thing we do is we
Rate.
yes. So what's the question or what's the ask? Come
Rate your experience. Oh,
go ahead.
rate your experience.
And
Selecting
selecting the
the
shipping.
the package type
Mm-hmm.
from 1 to 10. 1 being the worst, 10 being the best.
Right. Right. So let's go ahead and ship this, select this. What are we asking them to do now? Oh, wait, I skipped a step. Open this up a little bit more. What are we asking them to do now? They have an option. I don't really what's this over here?
US dollars or any other kind of currency?
That would be a UX problem because I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. See? That's why you go through the whole process, right? FedEx one rate, US dollars. Okay, okay. I don't even know. So let's go here. But if a user was going through this, they may point this out, right? Because when we say, did you so when we say, like, if I was the user and you asked me, were you able to ship your package type, right? And then I say, yeah. The next question, we're asking them to do what on this page? Select their options. So the question would be, come on for the money. Were you? What's the question? Hello? Anyone?
Were you able to select your shipment options?
Yeah, were you able to select your shipment options? And then what's the follow-up? We got to identify possible pain points. So what's the follow-up?
If no, what issues did you face while selecting your shipment option?
And the final.
Rate your experience and
Yes.
selecting your shipment options.
Yes. Now, if I were the end user, and if I was the person filling out this form, I would definitely call this out because I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Like, I would definitely be like, yeah, I would say if no, like what issues, oops. I would say I wasn't able to select the one rate option, right? Because I was unclear about what to enter into that. You see what I'm saying? That's why you don't leave any rock unturned. So what's the next ask that we're asking them to do?
Select delivery date and time.
Right.
Oh, so
So, yes.
were you able to select the delivery date, time, and rate?
Mm-hmm. And what's after we identify the task, what's the next thing we do? We
If
do what?
no,
Right. Because what are
what
we
issue?
doing? Because what's the purpose of the if no question? To do what? To identify possible what?
Pain points.
Yes. If no, what issues that you that you face? Well, selecting your shipment option. And then the final thing we do is
Rate it.
yes.
Right.
Yes. 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 So are you guys clear now on what the interviewing process looks like and what the purpose of it is and why we are detailed the way we are?
Yes, now I get it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You right. I was most definitely overthinking it, and I couldn't wrap my mind around it.
Yeah. I'm just like, what are we asking them to do? It's very simple. It's just like, can you do the thing that we want you to do? And if you can do it, was it easy? Was it painful? And rate the experience for 1 to 10, right? So, to categorize it, so your interview questions are structured into categories. So these would be tool usage, tool, or it can be a tool, it can be a feature, it can be an application, right? Whatever it is, tool, feature, application, usage, feedback, right? So these questions fall under that category. And that process is what we went through. So as a UX designer, because the thing is, if you're hired into a company, like, like a big existing company, more than likely in real life, this is more so what you're doing because they already have systems in place, right? So if you get hired at KeyBank or PNC or Huntington or Mortgage, Rocket, whatever, if you get hired somewhere, more than likely you're being brought in to make an experience better, right? So with your homework assignments, you guys are pairing up with small business owners where in your case, they don't have an existing product at all, right? And then in Janella's case, they do have a product, but it's not as advanced as this. So Janella, you could actually go through and, formulate this, go through the steps and formulate the questions because you can go through your client's website and you can identify what they want the person to do. You see what I'm saying? You can identify that they want the end user to be able to book a service, and you can ask, were you able to book a lawn care service? Were you able to select the service you wanted? How easy was it? Did you want it to, right? For each one of those experiences. But when you guys are hired, more than likely, this is the process. So if you follow this framework is just what I came up with now to help you guys through the process, but it's something you should hold on to. It's something that you should definitely hold on to in terms of formulating your empathy questions. Identify all the features and tasks that you're asking the end user to complete each step along the way, right? And then you want to ask questions to expose the possible pain points, and you want to have the user rate their experience. If you follow that 3-step process, you'll always do it right. Right? Does that make sense? Now,
Yeah.
part of, so once we move past the feedback part, and of course, because I want to really make sure this sticks, your homework assignment is going to be to go through the tracking process the same way we went through the shipping process together. So go through that tracking process and make sure you ask the proper interviewing questions to identify opportunities to make it a better experience, right? So you guys are going to go through the tracking process and formulate those questions as if you work for FedEx, the same way we did for shipping. But that's not all of it. So once you get past, so this is, you're gonna, we would finish that out. I think you guys got it in a solid way now, right? Let's do 2 more just to make sure it stick. What's the ask right here? What are we asking them to do?
Select their delivery date, time, and rate.
Right. So following the framework, what's the question?
Were you able to select your delivery date, time, and rate?
Mm-hmm. Should we break this up? What do you guys think? Or just have it one swoop?
No.
Okay. You guys just don't want to do all that time. Really, we probably should, but okay. Delivery time, rate. And then what's the follow-up question?
If no, what issues did you face with selecting
Yeah.
your delivery date, time, and rate?
Right. And then the final thing we do is
Rate it.
yep. So how would you word that?
Rate your experience in selecting your delivery date, time, and rate on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst.
Yeah. Or, you could just put a key in the beginning so you don't have to say that every time. Like this
Right.
questionnaire uses a rating system from 1 to 10. 1 is the worst, 10 is the best, the best experience. And you can throw it in like maybe once every 10 or 15 questions in case they forgot. You don't have to do it every single time. So rate your experience selecting your what is it? Date and rate on but you do always have to say on a scale from 1 to 10. You do always have to say that, but you don't have to say 1 being the worst, 10 being the best every single time. Yep. Okay. So going through that, that's how you identify like, the experience, right? So I have a question for you guys. And what did we learn about testing? What's important? What are some important things to consider when you're selecting your testing group? When you're selecting your testing group, you want to make sure that you do what? When you're selecting a group of people you're going to test.
The user.
Right. So what do you want to consider when you're selecting your users?
Pain
Because
points.
so let me formulate. My question is not clear. This isn't you, this is me. Okay. When you're selecting the groups of users that you are going to test, right? What considerations what are you going to take into consideration as you choose your group in light of what we learned last week in terms of representation? In terms of making sure that we're designing from a place of empathy and making sure that, remember when we think about the Google example.
Accessibility? Right, that's not it.
So we want to make sure that we select people that represent a broad range of representation. So we want to make sure that we select a broad range of ages. We want to make sure that we select men and women. We want to make sure that we select people who are tech savvy as well as people who are not tech savvy. You see what I mean? So we want to make sure that when we take into consideration that we have fair representation, because everything with design, we want to make sure do you remember what the keys were or what the characteristics were of good design?
I want to say video consumption. Or is that not it? Is that it?
No, so if a design, I'm scrolling back through our notes. Let me see if I can go back to last week. If a design is good,
Oh, it's usable or not?
mm-hmm.
Equitable, enjoyable,
Yes.
useful.
Yes. So during our interviewing process, when we're selecting people, when we're focusing on equity focused design, right? So if when we're selecting our group of people, at that point, that's where the equity focus comes in. So when you're selecting people for testing, and when you're selecting people for for testing and for interviewing, we're focusing on making sure that it's equity focused. So you want to gather people who are male and female, you know what I mean? You want to make sure that you get all ages, right? You want to make sure that you get people who have the latest and greatest um, phone or computer, and people who have a slower phone or computer. That covers the socioeconomic part of it, right?
Right.
Because you can't really ensure that you're focusing on equity if you're not representing everyone when you run your test. You know what I mean? So you can't really say, like, I'm being equity focused, but I didn't test this. I only tested people, I only tested one type of person.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? That's then you didn't design it based with equity. It wasn't an equity focused design if you did that. If you only interviewed one age of people, it wasn't an equity focused design process, right? So yeah, best design universal. Oh no, we didn't do that one, but inclusive and equity focused. Yeah, usable, equitable, enjoyable, and useful. Now, the questions that we're asking, so with these interview questions we just did with going through FedEx, where we focused on usable, equitable, enjoyable, useful, all that apply. What were we focusing on going through this interviewing process?
It was usable,
Yeah, and what else?
enjoyable.
Yeah, and what
Equitable.
else? Our questions selecting, I would say like the selection process is where we apply equality. When I was saying before, like we want to make sure that when we want to make sure that we interview people of all ages, we want to make sure that we interview people of all races, backgrounds, people who are tech savvy, people who are not tech savvy, people who have a budget for the most latest, greatest phone. So really the equitable part kind of comes into play when we're selecting the people that we're going to use for testing, and we're selecting the people that we're going to use for interviewing. That's when we're applying equality. But when the interviewing process, we're actually focusing in on the usable aspects, the enjoyable aspects, and the useful aspects. Does that make sense? Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So do you guys see how it always stacks? So like everything we learned the week before, we're applying it. So you can't let go of, always keep in mind of what we learned the week before and how it ties into what we're doing. Coming back to where we were, we are where are we? I'm lost. We're on interviews. Yep. So going back to our interviews, so we covered that part, right? So this part of the interview was the tools, feature, application, user feedback. But there's another part of your interview, and that part is and not this isn't like officially what it's called, but this is what I'm calling it to make it easy for you guys, is you want to have questions that identify the user vision and wish list. Right.
Okay.
So let's like pretend as if, we've gone through this whole process and we did all of this. Next, now these questions are going to roll into, what they would like to experience. So anytime that you talk about user vision and wish list, you kind of want to gauge your product that you're assigned to in comparison to others. So we do ask questions in terms of like what do you want, but we also want to gauge what other applications do you use for this, if any, and what did you like about what they did, and what would you like to see implemented here? So those types of questions. So what types of questions, so let's go ahead and list some questions for the user vision and wish list. What's a question? Team? Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. The question is the answer. So, we're asking the user what they would like to see implemented in the site. That's the question. You know what I mean? Like,
oh. Okay, y'all most definitely overthinking
it. Yeah. What features, right? And we call them features, right? So, but they may not know that. So we can say, well, we can say features. I think they'll get it. What features would you like to see added to the site? Or we won't say the site. What's our focus? What are we focusing on in this scenario?
Shipping a package.
Yeah, what features would you like to see added to the shipping process, to the to our online shipping process? And we can say like /form so they understand. Yeah, that's a good question. What's another good question that may help us identify the user's wish list? In comparison to other competitors, what would we ask them if we want to if we want to gauge how they compare us to other competitors, what would we say? I mean, what would we ask? We want to know if they've used any other competitor online shipping form.
Oh, okay, so what other shipping companies do you use?
We can say like we can be very specific and say, have you utilized
UPS?
Well, we don't want to say names, so we can say like, have you utilized other online shipping forms to ship a package or to ship packages, right? And then what's our follow-up question for that?
If so,
yes,
how does our shipping process compare? Or is that too much?
So that is exactly what we want to know, but that's not the way we ask it. So how can we get that answer without asking that? What questions can we ask to get that insight?
What do we offer, or what do they offer that we don't? Or
you're hot. What features? What features? If yes, I'm sorry, I forgot the if yes part. If yes, what features does their online form offer that you would like to see us offer?
Okay.
You see what I mean? Like that's the way we say it without saying it, but we're trying to get. Yeah. And then what's the final generic question?
Would you recommend our site to friends and family, I guess?
Yep. And then what's one more overarching when we want to get their input in terms of their wish list, just like a generic way of asking. I think we already said that. What features would you like to see added? Well, we already asked that. Yep, that's it. So that's how you would conduct that interview. And then we can just leave it open and say, would you like to share any other thoughts or concerns? because it may be maybe we didn't think of forming a question a certain way, but they may have valuable input.
Sorry, I had my thing on mute.
Yeah, that is how this is how you form your interview questions, right? So to recap, and this is the format for an existing application. So next we're going to move in how you form questions for an application that doesn't exist.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, since we're taking the class, I've been doing research on job openings in this field.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a lot of job postings for UX UI researcher and UX UI designer.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a difference? Because I feel like we're doing both.
We are doing both.
Okay.
So this course equips you for both. You could apply for either or. And that's why you cannot you have to be thorough when we're going through this process, right? So you see how we started compared to how we ended up?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when we started, it was kind of like, well, I mean, like, what kind of questions are we asking? I don't understand. Like, you say a shipment, you just enter the shipment, right? That's not. So we graduated from that to understanding that the whole purpose is to identify all the features, tasks, and steps that are part of the user experience. Without, what is the number one rule of UX design? No assumptions. Zero assumptions. As a researcher, zero assumptions, right? Because like when I was going through, when we went through the process of this, right? And before we got into the flow, the question was, were you able to complete the address information section? And at first it was kind of like, well, why are we asking them that? Of course they know, because are you considering everyone who may be possibly using it? And then when we went into the scenario of someone utilizing it who may be using a screen reader, then we identify why it's important to ask that question, because it's not just for, especially research. Research is not just about the end user. You're also it's always just about the end user, but that information is also carried back to the developers, and it gives the developers insight. Right. So that's why you never go into it with assumptions, because like I said in the example, if we had, if we had people, 3 or 4, however, even just one person saying that they had an issue and they weren't able to select the state, the developer is going to look at it and make sure that the screen reader assistant tool was there. You see what I'm saying? So being thorough is a necessity if you're going into UX research, and we're going to dive deeper into that. But before we move on, this is just how you handle a scenario with an existing application. Now there will be scenarios where there will be scenarios where, like in your situation, even though you're working for a bigger company add new products all the time. Like they add new products, they add new services, and the ability to add that product or service may not exist. So let's just say, for example, you were hired for FedEx and they're adding a new feature, and a new feature is drone shipment. And they don't currently offer this. So even though it's not an entirely new website, it is an entirely new feature. It doesn't, you know what I mean? So you may be on a team that's designing that experience so that someone can ship their package via drone shipment, right?
Okay.
So let's take that scenario, because in a scenario where you're creating a feature that doesn't exist, the framework still applies. So in this case, you're going to heavily rely on the business requirements. We always rely on the business requirements. Oh, before we move on, conducting this interview. So let's go back to this. When we are keeping the business requirements in mind, we have a 2-week deadline. So how is that going to impact the way you roll out these interview questions or phone interviews, whatever it is? The 2-week deadline is going to say, okay, I only have 1 day to conduct these interviews, or only have 2 days to conduct these interviews. The budget is also going to say like what so when you're considering the budget, as you map out how you're going to roll out the execution of these interviews, what decisions or what considerations, how does this affect the way you conduct these interviews, keeping the budget in mind?
Sorry. I guess volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
We can ask for volunteers.
Yep. And what else?
2 weeks.
What about in terms of, we're just talking about the interviewing process right now. So in the interview, so yes, it's a good idea to ask for volunteers. So we wouldn't offer paid test studies. Another thing is the types of, will we print it or will we do it online in terms of printing costs? You know what I mean? So it's like, well, we want to keep it as cheap as possible. So let's have an online questionnaire opposed to us printing 1,000 pieces of paper. Also, if you work for a company, is there a way, now when you're choosing between the 4 options, right? So the questions are the same, but the methods are different. So in terms of budget, when we're taking budget into consideration, which of these are the most feasible in terms of costs? Questionnaire surveys that may be presented online, in-person interviews, phone interviews, or video interviews. Which options are budget friendly?
Questionnaire surveys and phone interviews.
Mm-hmm. And video, depending on the end user, but possible. But when I say cost, I'm talking about the cost to the company or the business owner, stakeholder. Yeah.
I was thinking.
Go ahead.
I was thinking, on the other hand, it could be in person because you have to pay for some of those services as far as video interviews and things like that. And it might be more cost efficient to just have people come in. Granted, it won't be as time efficient.
Yeah. I get your thought process. In terms of business, the questionnaires or the phone is going to be the quickest, just in terms of so like if you do it in person, if they're already in the company, maybe, you know what I mean, that may be easier because it's going to cut down on the time. Like if you go around to your coworkers and kind of use them as test people. But if you're pulling in outside people, it may actually utilize more resources because you got to screen them and make sure they can enter into the building, and then they got to go up to HR and get a visitor's badge, and then you got to come away from your work. You know what I mean? So time is money. So I would say questionnaires, phone, or video. But I do follow your frame of thought. Where was I going with this? Oh, yes. Yeah. And then, like I said, the business kind of came in and said what the age was. So you kind of want to adhere to that, but also go outside of it, but make sure you include those people. And we didn't get to this part yet, but just for the interviewing phase, these things are the things that we're considering. The business requirements that are affecting the way we conduct our tests. Now, having said all that, the new feature. This doesn't exist, but these rules still apply. So instead of doing the drone example, we could do the drone example, but I don't know enough about drones to come up with possible tasks and call to action steps. So I'm going to switch gears to your specific project. Angela, your project is perfect for this framework for a new feature that doesn't exist because your business owner does not have an existing application.
Right.
So this would be an awesome time to talk about identify all the features, the CTA and the steps that are a part of the user experience to achieve the goal of focus. So our focus is, we identified this last week with your project. So can you pull back up?
Here, come
Wait, who is that? Janella. Janella, can you
on.
Janella mute? Janella, put yourself on mute. Okay. So Angela, can you pull back up so in this case, when you don't have an existing web application, you're heavily relying on the business requirements. And the business requirements is the information that you gathered from not the user interview, but this is information you gathered from your interview with the stakeholder,
Okay.
right? So in that case, that's what you're going to rely on because you don't have an existing application to step through. So this part right here, the tool feature application usage feedback, you actually can't do that right now because you don't have there's no existing app, right?
Okay.
But we can come up with hypotheticals and what tools, features we want to add. So
Okay.
so the focus of your interview is going to be a little bit different when you interview end users. So when you interview your end users for this week, for this part of it, you are going to kind of exist here, the user's vision and wish list, right? And
Okay.
the user vision and wish list is going to be based on what the business objective is. So picking up for your project, your scenario where there is no existing application, but you are presented with the task of creating a feature. Last week, the overall business is, what is it?
It is a
So
website so they can. Oh, are you asking me or are you telling me?
yeah, I'm asking you, do you have your Figma design?
Oh yeah.
I think I still have it. I don't know if you're still sharing it with me. You may have to allow me to see it again. So here it is. Here's your Figma design right here. What happened? Did you just kick me out?
It said my share button is like lighting up, but then
Okay, here it is.
oh, you still see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So last week, going through when we were combing through your business requirements and we had to kind of develop that out, we came to the process of, we know that the member has to, so what's the first part of this framework?
Where is it? Wait a minute.
Can you
Hold
see
on.
my screen?
Oh. Hmm. Okay, I see your screen, but I don't see that on mine.
Maybe you need to refresh on your end.
I don't mean so. Hmm. Uh, no, I only see.
Well, that's okay. You can just watch my screen and then we can figure that out because you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
We will just watch on and then we can figure it out later.
Okay.
But so we know that the services that are going to be offered, they're going to be able to request the in-body assessment, look at their stats, book a service, view their measurements, request a health assessment from the member area. But outside of the member area, they're going to be able to see like what we offer, and that's going to be in-body, personal training, health assessment, or book a service, about us, testimonials, and contact. So to rewind it all the way back to the beginning, let's go back to the beginning. You met with the business owner, and the business owner said, I want a way that people can go online and they can book a session with me. That was the business ask and the business requirement. That was his only requirement. We expounded upon that business requirement and said it also needs to be a business requirement that the end user can have a good member experience, as well as, if they're not a member, understand what products you offer. So having said that, going out in the field, let's just say, well, first of all, who are you going to interview? How many that you're going to interview 5 people, and based on what we were talking about, who are you going to gather and interview?
So I'm going to interview his clients or
So
potential clients.
his target audience, who was his target? We identify his target in like week 1.
Oh, people who wanted to lose weight,
Mm-hmm.
better their health,
Mm-hmm.
athletes.
Right. And in terms of equality, who do we want to include in terms of equitable design?
All ages.
But does he target all ages? Here's the part where it becomes like it becomes a little bit where we have to apply a little bit of, because in a real life scenario,
Well,
what what
no,
what
he
what
doesn't
what
target.
mm-hmm.
Oh, he
Go
doesn't
ahead.
target all ages, but he does from like high school to old or
Okay.
over 50, over 60.
Okay. So we want to, so when we are developing our interview guest list, right, so to speak, or should I say we're our interview personas? I don't even want to say personas. When we're developing our interview test, I don't know, our interview list. I'll just say that, keep it simple. Developing our interview list. We want to consider, what are the considerations? The
Um,
considerations
oh,
are,
usable, right? Or that's not it. Um,
well, when we're in the phase of, let me go back. This is the interviewing phase. So the interviewing phase is it dealing with equity focused design? Is it dealing with, hold on, let me see. Here we go. So when we're going through our design process, throughout the process, sometimes we're focusing on how usable it is. In some phases, we're focusing on how equitable it is. In some phases, we're focusing on how enjoyable it is. And in some phases, we're focused on how useful it is. In this phase that we're in now, which is the empathy phase of the design thinking framework, because we're in the empathy phase, and at this phase of it, we're just focusing on who we're going to interview. We're not walking them through the application at this phase, right? We're not walking them through a prototype. So the usable, enjoyable, useful part is not the primary focus right now. As we're determining who we're going to interview, we're kind of focusing on equitable considerations. So
okay.
equitable, when we consider, because we're trying to we want to make sure that we practice equality. We want to make sure that we have fair representation of all people who may be using the app as it relates to within the context of who's using this app, which is the tricky part. But so equity focused design, right? We want to make sure that we're considering that we have a broad representation in terms of race, in terms of gender, in terms of ability, in terms of age within context, and in terms of socioeconomic design. So when we're considering this and we're determining who we're going to interview, we want to make sure that we interview. So the interview process is making sure that our design is equitable, it's equal to all people, race. So you want to develop the list of people who represent more than one race, right? A diverse list. So you want a racially diverse group of people.
Okay.
Okay, what's the second thing that you want to consider when you're conducting your interview? What's the second thing over here? If you look at this,
Gender,
what's so what does that mean?
all genders.
So you want to um interview male, yeah, all genders. And you want to interview, what else do you want to make sure you interview?
Disabled.
Mm-hmm.
Interview disabled patrons. I don't know. People.
People with
And
disabilities.
okay.
Who else do you want to interview? What's what's
Um
the, what's the other
interview
what's the other requirement for equality focused design?
interview what
It's not,
age?
yeah.
So interview ages between
Who does he target? So it's only going to be relevant. Like if he doesn't target kids, you don't need to interview 10-year-olds. You know what I mean? Like if the site doesn't even service kids, there's no need to do that. You understand what I'm saying? Like say for example, if it was a service and the service was specifically for senior citizens and senior citizen age, I don't know what it is, but let's just say it's 62.
mhm.
If the site is only for senior citizens, then that's one of those use cases where I'm interviewing people who are 62 and up. I may throw in 55 or something like that because their family may help them, but that's the primary. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So what ages do he
I
do
would
he
say
target?
15 and up.
Okay. And what's the other consideration when you're conducting these interviews?
Socioeconomic design.
Socioeconomic.
Socioeconomic design.
So it's not like you're going around asking people how much do you make.
Right.
So what's a way for you to identify socioeconomic impact without exposing someone's annual income? We talked about this a lot last week.
Would it
Socioecon
be like based off the demographics research that we did?
Nope, it's real simple. You're overthinking it again because when we're talking about online devices, how does socioeconomics impact what type of device you have?
Oh, oh, okay. So like you said last week, how we were, what kind
Like,
of software bandwidth they had, or if they
mhm.
had out to date software, or up to date.
Not only software, but phones. Like some people just have old phones. Some people just have old, outdated computers and tablets, right? So you want to interview people who utilize the latest phones and devices,
Okay.
and people who use outdated devices. And to your point, you also want to interview people who have fast bandwidth or fast internet connections, and slow. So your group needs to represent this. So what does this look like this? So you need to interview um people, try to be as diverse as you can, right? So just make sure that you interview people who represent more than one race. Make sure you interview male and female. Make sure you interview at least one or two people with disabilities if you can. That may be hard, but maybe one thing you could do is if there's like centers for people who are visually impaired, hearing impaired, and you could kind of maybe be able to reach out and just let them know what you're doing for training and ask if there's that you want to create, you're working on empathetic design, right? So you're being trained in empathetic design and you're going through the process of making sure that moving forward, technology and applications and resources consider all people and don't overlook those who have traditionally been underserved. So is it okay if I conduct my interview? Is there anyone who you think will be fine with me conducting the interview for this application to make sure that it's user friendly, to get their insight on what makes it a better experience for them?
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Like for
Mhm.
people who may be visually impaired, hearing impaired, or whatever. Um, you want to interview your group may be, and some people may cover multiple things, right? So you may have one person who is a woman, and let's just say she's a woman and she uses a screen reader because she's visually impaired and she's 35. She covers three of these. Another person may be a male and he may be Asian, and uh, he has an outdated phone, but he has a super fast internet connection, right? So just make, so just check off, you know, just make sure that you cover all these bases is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, that's how you're going to gather your group of who you're going to interview. Now, the questions you're going to ask them. What questions are you asking people in terms of this application, keeping in mind the business requirements? So what the point is, what's our framework? The framework is always identify the task and features, ask questions that expose possible pain points and or room for improvement, and have them rate the experience. So for you, because it doesn't exist, the tasks are going to be, what's our task? Let's identify our task. The tasks that we want to interview about are, let's look at your so what tasks? We want to interview tasks surrounding, what are we asking them to do? Log in.
Log in.
We want to ask questions centered around logging in. We want to ask questions centered around utilizing the member area.
Okay.
We want to ask questions centered around, what else? What's
booking
this?
a service.
Yeah. Booking a service. And what else? What other questions? Is there anything else we asked them to do? Complete payment.
Oh.
What else do they do within this member area?
They can contact us. Oh, I'm gonna mute for a second.
Janella, it's a team effort. You can put, even though it's not your project, we're always pretending as if we're working together at a company, at a team. So what else should she consider? Janella?
Hey, I'm sorry.
That's okay. What else should she
I,
consider?
I don't I don't have anything to add.
So if you can you see her oh my God, her workflow? Can you see her user flow?
Mm-hmm.
So people can log in, they can enter into the member area, and from the member area they can book a service. But what other things can they do in here? Inside of the member area. They can look at their in-body assessment. What else can they do? I can't hear you, Janella.
Oh, can you hear me any better now?
Okay, what were you saying?
I was just reading the boxes that they could do their health assessments, their meal plans, stats, contact us. So you're asking what else should she add to that contact us?
No, this is for her interview. So this is the interviewing process where she's interviewing users so that she can identify what they would like to experience and what would create an awesome experience for them. So we're going to ask them questions centered around their login process. We're going to ask them questions centered around them utilizing the member area. We're going to ask questions centered around them booking a service. We're going to ask questions centered around
the health assessment.
yeah. So we're going to ask questions around viewing and tracking assessments and progress. Okay, so based on these questions, so using our framework, the first thing we do is we identify our features, tasks, and steps that are part of the user experience, right? So we know those are the experiences. To achieve the goal, so what's the ultimate goal? For each one of these, so the goal is to log in, the goal is, but the overarching goal is for them to learn about, to book us, yeah. So the goal is for them to book a service if they're a member, and if they're not a member, what's the goal? I mean, shoot, I'm sorry. If they're that's if they are not a member, and if they are a member, what's the goal?
They can book a service or track their stats.
Yeah, so those are the two primary goals. What time did we come back at 10:15? I'm losing track. We took a break at 9, right? We took a break at 9, and then we came back at 9:15. We took a break at 10:15, and we came back at 10:30. It's time for our break. Okay, let's take our break, and then we'll come back and map out these questions for the interview questions that we ask for a system that doesn't exist. So I will see you guys back at, do you guys want to take a break now, or do you want to go, do you have the attention span to go to 12 and then we just take our lunch break?
We can go to 12.
Are you okay with that, Janella?
Yes, I agree.
Okay. All right. So login questions. So you're interviewing your people. So you gathered your people. So you have a diverse group of people. You got men, you got women, you got multiple races. You have different people who represent different disabilities. You have ages 15 and up. And then you have people who got the old outdated devices, and you got people who got the latest and greatest. And you also have people who have a fast internet connection and those who don't, right? So that's who we're interviewing. Login, what questions are we asking them? Well, first of all, before we even get to the nitty gritty, what's looking at the overall goal to book a fitness service specifically? Fitness, well-being service. Okay, so with that overarching goal, what are some questions that we want to dive into to kind of gauge what type of user experience we want? So from this point, because it doesn't exist, a good place to start is always to gauge, do they already use tools, right? Because we don't have anything, so we kind of want to hear their input on what they're already using. So just kind of gathering input from online services, online fitness services, online booking of online fitness services that they may be using. What are some questions we want to ask to enter into that space just to open up the conversation? Don't overthink it. My question is always the answer.
I'm logging in.
No, we're not even on, right? We're going to start here first.
Oh.
With the overall goal being to book a fitness service or track your fitness progress and goals. So we kind of want to gauge, because we don't have an existing application or feature, we kind of want to gauge what they're using. Are they using anyone else's? And what do they like or not like about that experience? So the first question is, do you currently, what's the question?
Do you currently, do you want to book a service?
No, we're not even there yet.
You currently use a booking service
Yeah,
or a fitness service.
do
Oh,
you currently use an online fitness service? Or have you used one in the past? Right? And then it's the same format. Do you currently use an online fitness service or have you used one in the past? But instead of if no, this question is if yes. What's our follow-up question? We're trying to identify, what are we trying to identify, first of all? We are trying to expose possible pain points and or rooms for improvement. So what's question, do you currently use an online fitness service or have you used one in the past? We're trying to identify possible pain points, and in this point, possible pleasure points too, because we don't have an existing application, but we're asking questions so that we can develop one, design one. So what's the follow-up question if we're identifying possible pain points or pleasure points?
If yes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what did you like about their service or something
Yeah.
like this?
Yep. What do you
And
like
which
about
ones would you like to see us offer?
Yes. Yep. Do you currently use an online fitness service or have you used one in the past? If yes, what do you like about their online fitness platform? Right? What features would
Like,
you like to see implemented? Or honestly, I would say, yeah, if yes, I would say this question can be one and another same. Well, no, we can say that. What features would you like to see implemented in our uh online fitness platform? You follow? Yep. Now that we asked that question, now we can go into the details, right? So if we're talking about logging in, what do we want to gather about logging in? How do we ask the question?
were you able to log in?
This app doesn't exist. So what we can do is we can ask questions like, what login features do you enjoy? What login have you ever utilized a login member area, right? And it's the same thing. So like what login features do you enjoy? What login features frustrate you? You see what I'm saying? Have you ever utilized an online member area for assessing body measurements? If yes, what do you follow what I'm saying? So it's just like because this doesn't exist, we have to go from hypothetical. So it's the same questions, but it's from experiences that they've had with other applications outside of ours. And if a person tells you that they haven't had an experience outside of ours, what would they like it to be? So it's very similar, but it's just a little bit different of a point of view because we don't have a product that exists. So we're asking them about someone else's product or what they would like to see. Does that make sense? Yes, no.
Yes.
Okay. So Angela, with the login, what's the question that you would ask? Following our framework. So go up here to our framework. Our framework, let me copy this. I don't have to keep scrolling up so much. I'm gonna delete it, but I'm gonna copy the framework down here because I keep having to scroll. It's making me lose my spot. Uh, okay, Angela, dealing with the login. What's the questions that we're gonna ask? Angela. Is she still muted dealing with Samson? Angela, are you there? Okay, Janella. Well, what question should she ask? Janella, I can't hear you if you're saying something.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Okay, so for login, what question should she ask following the framework?
What login experience would you like to see?
But how do
Oh, we
we?
passed that already.
No. So the question more so would be, do you currently use, right? So do you currently
Another
use a
fitness platform.
login service? Do you currently log in to another fitness service? To other online, let's say fitness platforms, right? So what's the follow-up question? What's the follow-up question, Janella?
So, what did you like about that service?
Uh, if yes, what features do you find? So we was more so say like, what features do you find easy and intuitive in their login process, right? And then that's a pleasure point. How do we identify the pain point? What's the question?
Identify a pain. To identify the pain point, we will ask what features were difficult to use.
Yes. What login features have you found difficult to use, if any? Right? And then do you currently log in? And then your final question was what login features would you like to see implemented in this online fitness platform? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's the process. So then moving on to utilizing the member area, what are the questions that we're asking about that? Oh, but wait, before we get to that, what if they're not a member? What if they said no? So we're asking, do you currently log in to other online fitness platforms? If yes, what features do you find easy and intuitive in their login process? What login features have you found difficult to use, if any? Right? What login features would you like to see implemented? So what if they say no? If no, what's the question we're asking?
If no, what would you like to add? Or if no,
They say they've never used another fitness platform.
Another online fitness platform. So we're still trying to, the whole purpose of this is to create a pleasant login experience. So if they say they haven't, what questions are we going to ask them so that we can provide a pleasant login experience for them? If no,
I would ask what expectations do you have?
I can't hear you, Janella. You're like breaking up.
I would ask what expectations do you have
You can ask the
for
same
an
question. You
online
can ask the same question. Yeah, if
login features
no,
would you like to see implemented?
yeah. Yeah. All right, so moving on to the Where am I? I'm sorry, I'm losing myself because this. Oh, I need to pull this down. The scrolling is throwing me. So, the member area. What questions are we asking to make sure that we create a pleasant member area experience? It's the same format. We don't have an existing app, so we have to compare it to their other experiences. So how does that question look?
Oh, do you currently
Mm-hmm.
have any other?
Wait, are you, what do you currently have? What's the way we ask that about the membership?
Are you currently a member
Mm-hmm.
on a different fitness platform
Mm-hmm.
or on other fitness platforms?
Or we can say on any fitness platform.
Okay.
Or have you been in the past?
Hmm.
What's the follow-up question?
Um, if yes, is
Mm-hmm.
it the same?
Yep, it's the same format.
Okay, if yes, then what features do you? So am I just saying what you said before?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. If yes, what features do you
Yeah.
find easy and intuitive?
Yeah.
Membership.
Ah, yep. And then that's the pleasure point. We got to identify the pain point.
Difficult and then membership.
What did you say, Janella? What did you say? I can't hear you.
Difficult. What features have you found difficult in their membership process?
Yeah. What features did you find difficult or frustrating to use? To use where? What's our
Once you
focus?
log in,
No,
In their
within
oh,
the
member
member
area,
area.
membership
Within the member area
member
and why?
area experience.
And why? So what features did you find difficult or frustrating to use within the member area and why? We should say if any to not lead the question.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and why? Yeah, we said and why, if any. Okay. So in terms of this specifically, so outside of that, now we can kind of move into with this question specifically because there's so many specifics in terms of embodied stat, body measurements. If you had to categorize this in terms of what type of services is, I would categorize in-service stats, measurements, health assessment to be tracking progress. So let's ask questions about their experience in tracking their progress within a fitness app. So how would we form that question?
do you currently track?
Yeah,
Do you,
yeah, what's the
do
question?
you, okay, do you currently track your progress or stats
Mm-hmm.
in any other devices or any other apps or
And any other online
okay.
platform or application or apps. Oh, we didn't finish this one. This one is a if no. What happens if they no? What's the if no?
Sorry, I have myself muted. If no,
For
what
them?
features would you like to see in your member
Yeah,
area?
yeah.
it's just kind of hard to give an obvious answer, especially when we've given it before, just based off how
Because you
you
think it's supposed to be harder than what it is.
yeah, it's just so hard. Mm,
Yeah, it's not hard.
mm. Gotta get out of that mindset.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Like when people come into tech, like software development, UX, two things make people overthink and overshoot the goal. For one, how much you get paid,
Mhm.
and then for two, it's just like the stigma or the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the reputation that surrounds tech, the story, the narrative. That's what I'm looking for. So
Okay.
what ends up happening is uh, a big trap is for people to look at how much they get paid and to look at the narrative that surrounds a certain career, and then come up with this assumption like if I'm getting paid six figures, this has to be extremely complicated. So their mind automatically converts everything into a mad scientist project. Because
Right.
you're
It's not.
thinking like, there's no way I'm getting paid, six figures or 90,000, whatever, to answer this question. It's like, no, actually you are.
It
You know
has
what
to
I
be
mean? It's
rocket
like,
science, right?
right, it has to be rocket science. And it's the same thing with software development. It's like, because the narrative that's pushed on TV is like the guy who's the quote unquote nerd who is the social outcast, and he's super smart and he has this super IQ, and he sits in the room in the dark with five computer monitors, and he's like Rain Man, and he's developing this code, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of times when I'm teaching development and the answer is obvious because that's the visual that's in everyone's head, no one ever goes for the obvious answer. It's
No.
always like some far reach, some far out there. And I'm like, no, it's just a colon. You know what I mean? Like, no, it's the obvious. And the one thing about the way at least this country works is the more you utilize your mind, the more you make, the less you work.
Mm,
The less you make in income, the harder you work.
that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah. And that's typically the rule. So yeah, just stop overthinking this stuff. Like it's really straightforward.
Okay.
Okay. If no, what features would you like to see added to the member area? Um, do you currently track your fitness progress or stats in any other online platform or apps? What's the follow-up question?
If yes,
Mm-hmm.
what features do you
Yeah.
find easy and intuitive?
Yes.
Or
Yes. That's it.
okay.
Just let it be what it is.
Can you add like what features do you like as well? Because what if
Yes.
it's something that they like and not just find easy, but they like it?
Yep. I like that question. Yep. And then what was our other question? Our follow-up question. Same
Um,
format.
what features do you find difficult or frustrating
Mm-hmm.
in the member area and why?
Well, this one is and
if
tracking
any.
your, yeah, if any. And this one is focused on tracking your fitness progress.
All right.
Using within, so this one will be within um so this one will be what features do you find difficult or frustrating to use in tracking your your fitness progress,
Mm-hmm.
and why, if any? Yep. Hmm. And then what's the question
Um,
right here? But it's what tracking features would you like to see added to this application?
okay. What features would you like to see added?
To what? You have to be specific.
Oh, what features would you like to see added to the tracking and stats, or
Yeah, yeah. Add it to track your fitness progress. Mm-hmm. What else can I? Is the health assessment different than tracking your stats? I think it
yeah.
is. All
Hmm.
right, so that's another feature.
No,
So
no, it's
what's
the same. I mean,
it's the same?
no, I'm
Okay.
just joking. I was just
Oh, I'm like,
trying
I
to
don't know.
get
Like what?
trying to get out of answering more questions.
Well, when I know that you have it, that's when I stop. Like I'm not going to stop until you do it without messing up.
Okay.
All right, so tracking.
Our health assessment or assessment isn't tracking.
Oh, it's not? Okay. So what are they doing? What's the call to action? What's the action that they're doing?
The health assessment is,
When they log in, what are they logging in to do with the health assessment?
oh, that needs to be in a different spot then. So that's like booking a service.
But what if I already had a health assessment? We're in the member area.
Oh, oh, okay, yeah. So it's like track. Well, I guess it is tracking. Blood pressure, and
Are they tracking it or are they viewing it?
they're viewing it.
Yeah. So what are they doing? So health assessment review.
Okay. Mm.
All right. So what's the question? We want to make sure they have a pleasant experience doing the thing. So we want to make sure they have a pleasant experience doing what?
Reviewing their health assessment.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So what's the question?
Are you currently reviewing your health assessment on any other platforms?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So the way I would form that question is, do you currently use any other online platforms or apps to view your health assessment? And what's the follow-up question?
If yes,
Mm-hmm.
what features do you find easy and intuitive?
Yes.
What features do you like?
Right.
What features do you find difficult or frustrating
Right.
to um to use while wait, no, what features do you find difficult or frustrating while viewing your health assessment?
Yes.
And why?
Mm-hmm. What features, we need to rephrase this a little bit. What features do you find difficult or frustrating when attempting? And I don't think this should be features. It should be what process maybe.
Okay.
What process do you find difficult or frustrating in reviewing your it's 12 o'clock, but let's just finish this question and take a break. What process do you find difficult or frustrating? And is Janella back?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't, oh, okay. What feature or process?
Okay.
Okay, what process do you find difficult or frustrating in reviewing your health assessment and why, if any?
If any.
Janella always come in and be like, if any.
If
Uh,
any.
what process do you find difficult for, if any? And what's the final part of this question?
What process would you like to be added to viewing the health assessment? Or maybe that
Mhm.
process is too hard for them to think of.
Okay, what do you want to say?
What
Features.
feature?
Or
Or
okay,
what about just what would you like to see added to viewing the health assessment?
I like it. Your health assessment.
Oh yeah.
And then what's the final question? No, it's not really the final. Well, yeah, what's the final question? Well, we forgot the other scenario.
Oh, if no,
Hmm.
um, what would you like to see? Oh, what did I just say? What would you like to see added?
Yes. Yeah, it's a repeat question.
Okay.
Yes. See? Now, this questionnaire is part of your portfolio when you interview because this is proof of UX design research, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
you're interviewing, you're saying, so my client was X, and the business requirement for this project were what we did in week 1, because you present that in your interview, right?
Mm-hmm.
His business requirements were this. Based on this, we came up with an expansion of the business requirements to be these features were added. After conducting that, this is the workflow this is the user flow that was created, right? Then moving into design thinking, the design thinking process, the first step being empathy. These were the questions we formulated for the empathy phase of the design thinking process. Because for in this example, the client did not have a pre-existing feature or application. These are the questions we asked during the empathy phase. Do you see what I'm saying? We'll
Mm-hmm.
finish building these out when we come back. So we will come back at 1. I'm gonna say 1. It's 12:05. So we'll come back at 1:15 for lunch.
Okay.
Okay. Janella
Fine.
is screaming at me about lunch.
All right.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll see you guys in an
Oh,
hour or
you just
10.
not seeing that?
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.